When did you find out that one deleted message is all it takes to lose someone forever? My brother Nathan sent me a voicemail at 3 in the morning on a Friday in October. I didn't listen to it. I was annoyed, actually, because his drinking had gotten worse over the past year, and his late-night calls were always the same rambling apologies about things that happened when we were kids. The notification sat there on my phone while I made coffee and got ready for work, and I remember thinking I'd deal with it later when I had the energy to hear him slur through another story about our father. By noon, I'd forgotten about it entirely. My phone storage was getting full anyway, so during my lunch break, I went through deleting old voicemails without listening to them. Nathan's message from that morning was one of them. I barely glanced at the timestamp before swiping it into the trash. 3 hours later, my sister Iris called me at work. Her voice so broken I could barely understand what she was saying. Nathan was dead. They found him in his apartment that afternoon when his boss went to check on him after he didn't show up for his shift at the warehouse. No signs of struggle, no note, just Nathan on his couch like he'd fallen asleep. The medical examiner would later say it was an overdose, accidental or intentional. They couldn't determine which. I stood in the parking lot of my office building with Iris crying on the phone, and my first thought was that voicemail, the one I'd deleted without listening. What if he'd said something important? What if there was a clue in his words that could have changed everything? I went straight to my deleted folder, hands shaking so badly I could barely hold my phone. 30 days. That's how long deleted voicemails stay retrievable. Except the folder was empty. I just cleared it that morning as part of my storage cleanup, permanently erasing everything, including Nathan's final message to me. The weight of what I'd done hit me like a physical blow, and I bent over right there in the parking lot and threw up. My younger brother had reached out to me in what might have been his last hours alive, and I'd deleted him. I drove to Iris's house in a daze, barely remembering the route. When I got there, the house was full of relatives I hadn't seen in years, all of them crying and holding each other, while I stood in the doorway feeling completely hollow. Our mother sat on the couch surrounded by photo albums, already deep into that grief-stricken nostalgia that overtakes people when someone dies suddenly. Kevin pulled me aside into the kitchen and explained what little they knew. Nathan's boss had gotten worried when Nathan didn't show up for the morning shift. The door was unlocked, and Nathan was on the couch with an empty bottle of pills on the coffee table next to him. The police said it looked like he'd been there for several hours, which meant he probably died not long after leaving me that voicemail. The thought made my legs weak, and I had to sit down at the kitchen table, putting my head in my hands. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying that moment in my car when I'd casually deleted Nathan's message, treating it like junk mail instead of a communication from my own brother. What had he wanted to tell me? Was it a goodbye? A cry for help? Just another drunk rambling that happened to be his last? The not knowing felt like it was eating me alive from the inside out. Around 2 in the morning, I remembered that my phone carrier might keep records of voicemail transcriptions. I spent the next 3 hours on my laptop, logging into every account I could think of, searching through emails and cloud storage for any trace of that message. Nothing. Days later, Iris asked me to help her go through Nathan's apartment before the landlord cleared it out. Walking into Nathan's space felt like violating a tomb. There were past due notices for utilities, printed job applications, and a journal I didn't even know he kept. I picked up the journal with trembling hands and flipped it open to a random page from 3 weeks ago. Nathan's handwriting was barely legible, but I could make out phrases about feeling trapped and wondering if anyone would notice if he disappeared. I kept reading, my heart sinking deeper with every page, until I reached the final entry dated the night he died. The last thing Nathan wrote was a simple sentence. Called Theo. Hope he picks up this time. My name on the page in his handwriting felt like an accusation. I flipped back through earlier entries and found other mentions of calls I didn't remember, texts I must have read and forgotten to answer, invitations to hang out that I'd been too busy to accept. The pattern was there in black ink, a documentation of my failures as a brother spread across months of pages. Then I found Nathan's laptop and opened his email. Buried in his sent folder from that final night, I found an email he'd sent to himself at 3:15 in the morning, just minutes after leaving me that voicemail. And what he had written broke my heart. The rest of the story is linked below or on my channel.